Cello, you ready for some divisional playoff football?
I think I am. I'm kind of sad that there's only 4 games left. That's when you know it's
It
just winding down. It's so
really is.
depressing. But
I know.
the level of football is certainly exciting, and these are some very interesting games. I think really tough to handicap. But let's see how what you think.
I totally agree. And I would have to say this is the best weekend of the season because I just think these matchups are great. We at least get 2 games each day in prime time, essentially.
Yes,
And next weekend, I'm not saying next weekend's anticlimactic, but there's only 2 games. They are the AFC and NFC championship games, but this is like 4 games. They're going to be 4 great games, I think.
I think so too.
And I totally agree with you. Very tough to handicap. And I don't think like the market has built in all the information. You're not going to find something that isn't, you're not going to find an edge that someone else hasn't. It's like these numbers, and they have moved a little bit, moving sort of steaming a little
Half
toward the
point here or there.
favorites, right?
Half point here or there. But you'd expect that. I would think you would expect that,
Yeah.
especially with the number one seeds that have been resting. So that makes sense to me.
Yeah. So yeah, I
Oh,
mean, look, this won't be as long of a pod as they've been like when we do every single game on the card, but I say we just jump right into it. And then just following up on last week, uh I was 4-2 and you were 2-4. We were on our consensus picks, we were 2-2. But basically so we were together on Seattle, Jags, Buffalo, and Giants. So we split there. Seattle, huge letdown. I
second
don't
half
know.
letdown, of course,
Let's
was
let's
terrible.
let's spend a few minutes talking about last week because we didn't do the Monday pod. But yeah, I was disappointed in Seattle, and they hung in there. But when that turnover happened by
Yeah,
Gino, it's
that was
like the
Gino. That was the same thing Gino did in London. He fumbled in the red zone, and the game turned on a dime. I mean, it was 23-17. They were in field goal range to make it a 3-point game at minimum.
mm-hmm,
And for some reason, he doesn't hold the ball in his hand well when he's just unaware of
mm,
what's going on around him. Guy
yeah,
just slapped it out of his hand,
yeah,
and the game just changed. I mean, that's Geno Smith. You know what I'm saying?
mm-hmm,
So yeah, he threw a nice spiral a few times this year. He had some nice stats early in the year against bad teams. He got himself in the running, but when the chips are down, he proved once again to be you know unaware in the pocket and you know a loser. Let's face it. He lost the game for his team.
You think it was just him? I mean,
I thought that
they
that
couldn't stop the
turnover
run.
that turnover changed the entire complexion of the game.
Yeah,
If he takes a sack there
and kicks. Yeah,
and kicks, it's 23-20. The momentum hasn't changed. They're getting
mm-hmm,
9.5. Even if San Francisco went up by 10,
yeah,
it's still not a game where you feel that huge momentum tidal wave shift the way it did off the turnover.
mm-hmm. I agree. So that was disappointing for us.
No
You know,
question.
the yeah, I know you were out to dinner, and
The
I was also for the first half, but the Jags Charger game
We got
was
there. I had Jacksonville.
massive comeback. I
I
mean,
had Jacksonville. Yep.
that was
Plus,
as lopsided as the San Francisco game at one point,
yeah,
maybe worse. And the tide turned in that game also,
it sure
right?
did. It sure did. The tide turned, and you got to give credit to Peterson as a coach to hold that team together. I mean, he credits Trevor Lawrence and also being able to shake these things off quickly and move on to the next play. So, most quarterbacks, if you throw 4 interceptions in a half,
Yeah.
number one, you'd be benched at the half most of the time,
Right,
right?
but
I
he
mean, let's
didn't.
face
I
it.
don't know if you saw them all, but I wouldn't consider them. I mean, the tipped balls, it's hard to count that against necessarily. Like that's not as bad as like a bad decision or a bad throw, right?
A
That's
couple
just
of
that
those too.
there's a little unlucky
Yeah,
to
I,
that.
I get it. I
Yeah.
understand. I know statistics can be a little misleading, but at the end of the day, you gave the other team the ball 4 times
Yeah.
and they turned that into points. Now, the fact that the Chargers could not score a point in the second half is an indictment on them. That's why probably why, you know, a lot of people on that team got fired
Hmm.
in coaching positions after that, and deservedly so. And
Yeah.
I had a feeling the reason I took Jacksonville in that game was number one, I like that we were getting 2.5 at home. And number two, I don't like the Chargers without Mike Williams. I just don't think the offense is the same. And I'd venture to say I didn't watch the game because I was at the dinner, but I'm sure some of those interceptions gave him short fields. And I think one of them might have been a pick six, no? Or maybe not.
Yeah.
I thought I saw one of them as a pick six, but either way, they
Yeah.
got a bunch of short fields out of that. And I didn't, obviously, Herbert was not all that impressive in the second half. So
Were you
their
surprised
offense
they
is
didn't?
different.
Were you surprised they didn't fire Brandon Staley this week? I
Yeah, I
was.
mean, yeah, I kind of was. I'm not a huge fan of Staley's. I mean, he's all analytics all the time, and I just think you need a healthy balance of analytics and feel and reality. And I don't think he does any of that. I think he has terrible feel for the game situationally. I don't think he understands. I just think he looks at the numbers and he does what the stats tell him to do, and he does it. He's a robot,
Mm.
and I don't think that works in baseball or in football for that matter. But it was nice
Looks
to win
like
that game.
Joe Lombardi was the one who took the axe for. I
Yeah,
guess he's accountable, obviously, but Joe
yeah.
Lombardi was the one that's they're pointing the finger at.
Yeah. And then I guess the other game that really made me feel the best was, and I said on the podcast that of all the underdogs, the one I could see winning the game would be the Giants.
Yeah,
And sure enough, they went out and did it. And I was super happy for all of our Giant friends, to get that win was big, for
yeah,
them as a franchise. For Danny Dimes to get a win, he looked amazing. Saquon was good. Defense is healthy. They shut down Jefferson.
yeah. And I don't know about you, but I left that game, agreeing, like we both agreed on that. I was unimpressed with Minnesota going in, and that on the flip side of that, less impressed with the Giants win. It was kind of like more an expectation, other than like, wow, they had this huge accomplishment, because I had Minnesota ranked almost last in the league.
Yeah,
And
yeah. I mean, listen,
their
that
defense was
is,
so bad in that
yeah,
game,
that's true.
right?
But you still got to go on a road in a place where you don't win normally,
Yeah,
and they did it. So
yeah,
you got to give them credit.
I do. And what'd
The
you
game,
think of the? I mean, you and I were wrong on Buffalo, but
oh,
I was also, one of my takeaways from that game was that Miami's defense played great. I mean, I think Josh Allen got sacked 7 times. I mean, I don't know if I'm incorrectly giving credit to Miami, or I should be looking closer at Buffalo's offensive line, but Miami's defense, I was impressed by the way they played in that game. I
yeah.
did
I,
not
I
expect that.
I thought Buffalo let them in the game. They were up 17-0. There's no reason to take your foot off the throttle. And then they threw he starts turning the ball over. Again, it's
Mm-hmm.
these turnovers. This is the problem with Josh Allen all year, is that the guy's superhuman sometimes, and then he's just dumb
Mm-hmm.
sometimes. And you got to get rid of the dumb. He might be missing Brian Dable. I got to tell you, Dable's been, I mean, look what he did he's worked wonders with Daniel Jones, right? I mean, the
Yeah.
turnovers are way down for Danny Jones. And
Yep.
imagine Dable with Zach Wilson for a
Mm-hmm.
second. I mean, I bet you he'd make him a decent quarterback. So Josh is probably doing a little too much on his own. And their defense has, listen, there's a lot to be said for McDaniel and Miami being in that division, playing them for 3 times.
Yep.
Yes, their personnel is pretty good on, Miami, they're a playoff team. I mean, barely.
Mm-hmm.
With Tua, you got to argue that they would have won that game.
Mm. Yeah. It's hard to
I mean,
say.
Skylar Thompson turned it
Skyler
over a
played
couple
good.
times too,
Yeah.
And he was inaccurate a couple times where Tua is very accurate.
Yeah.
So interesting game. I felt like Buffalo enabled Miami.
Mm-hmm.
Especially first possession, the second half, first play, he gets hit and fumbles. They run it in. I mean, you got to stop with these turnovers.
Well, also their defense, like at key moments, and we don't bet a lot of first half stuff, but the fact that Buffalo was up 8 going into the half and he throws the interception, that was so untimely. And I bet you the first half line was probably 7, something like that. They turn it over, and all of a sudden Miami scores a touchdown, and then the 2-point conversion, and the game's tied at halftime.
Yeah, it was
where it was just like
it was unreal.
You were going into the half with an 8-point lead,
and we were giving way too many points in that type of a scenario where they were going to, once you let a team back in the game and they have confidence like that, it's very hard to cover a big number, especially against a division opponent, and that's why I thought the Ravens would hang around as long as they did. And they put a scare in a lot of people, man. The Ravens. They really did.
They played very well.
Talk about a defense
Tyler
that played well.
Huntley, I mean, he kind of pulled a Geno Smith. That was a
Yeah.
horrible decision.
Yes.
The way in which he went for that. And that was like they were very much in that game, and he played a great game.
100%. I mean, if Lamar played that game, Cincinnati would have lost.
Yeah.
I'm 100% convinced.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that when we get to the Cincy Buffalo game, but I don't think that was a very good showing by Cincinnati last week.
Let me tell you this. I'll tell you this. That game bailed out a lot of people, including all the leaders in Megabucks. I mean, everyone and their mother had Cincinnati in a teaser.
Oh, yeah.
If Baltimore would have won that game, the standings would have been upside down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was a very, very big game in Megabucks. I'm not sure if you saw all the bets.
I did. And I wanted to ask you about that.
The league had Cincinnati in that game.
Yeah.
In a teaser, every which way but loose.
Oh, yeah. I want to know what you think about the teaser rules at wantomakeabet.com, because
I think
it might be time for a change. I mean, we've had this 13-point teaser for 20 years now.
Yeah.
And 20 years ago, that was a bet that was taken in Las Vegas, and that's where it came from. But since then, the league has changed, or the rules of betting and the action that books take.
I think a 3-teamer should be the max. I think you may lose. I don't think you'll lose players over it. I think you'll have disgruntled players.
Well, I think it's got to change to where the market is, which is 2-team teasers are 6 points.
Right.
And if you want to buy, a half or a 1.5 or stuff like that, you can do that by laying odds. Now, when you bet 3-team teasers, now these are Vegas rules and offshore, legal and non-legal. The way teasers work in this market is you bet a 3-team teaser, you get odds. You bet a 4-team teaser, you get better odds. 5, 6, like you can bet a 7-team teaser, but it's always 6 points, and you may get 6 or 7 to 1 on those bets.
I don't like that at all.
But that's the market.
I know, but I think in our league, you can cut it off at 3-team teasers only, and you're getting the 10 points the way you would in a 3-team teaser, and you don't offer the 4-teamers anymore.
Because the 4-teamers, I mean, the fact that Seattle covered in a 4-team teaser, the fact that if Cincinnati lost that game by 3, they would have covered in a 4-team teaser.
Yeah, it's crazy.
They were getting 4.5. I saw some of the bets. 4.5 they were getting.
I think it's craziness.
Seattle was getting 17.5.
Yeah, by the way, you're going to see a lot of those this weekend.
Yeah. Because this is the last weekend to get a true 4-team teaser in.
It's going to happen.
Yeah. So it's almost like I'm starting to feel like look, the rules are the same for everyone.
That's a discussion for next year.
It just doesn't reflect current market, and that's kind of like what I've always tried to do with the site. That
sounds like some of your end of the year type stuff. And by the way, you didn't do your weekly review of last week's action. You didn't send any newsletter out this week to the Megabucks players. That was weird.
No, I do that. I'll do that going into the weekend.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Tomorrow morning.
Well, let's move on to the games.
Let's do it. Let's start with Chiefs Jags. Let's make our line 8.5.
Really? I think you should make it 9.5, because I could see it going to 10.
Really?
Yeah. They're the number 1 seed off a bye.
Yeah.
There's 3 things in life. There's death, taxes, and Andy Reid wins off a bye.
Mm-hmm. So do I take that to mean you like the Chiefs this weekend?
A couple of things about it. I look at the DVOA stuff, and the one thing that alarms me about the Chiefs is they're like 19th on defense in the league. And that's, and I know last time they played, Jacksonville went down early and they never really came back. It was 27-17, but they got a late touch. And it really wasn't even that close. I anticipate a high scoring game. I think Jacksonville's offense is playing much better football than they had been. And I know if you just look at the DVOA, even with the recency bias and something that they actually did themselves, where they kind of, I saw on the site that they like weeks 1 through 7, they kind of just threw them out and they put less emphasis on sort of like what you're doing. So they kind of did that in their own numbers. And
well, no, they do that like with the Dave. They have a filter where they weight the preseason heavier than the current. But unless you use the filters that I use, where you actually deselect weeks, you're getting the whole season. And
Yeah,
so,
but I'm just saying they did something recently. I just looked at it when I signed up for it, where they de-emphasize weeks like 1 through 8 were like literally, I think, thrown out.
I don't think so.
Um,
But either way, there's a lot of cuts that you can use. I'm sure you see now that you've joined, but so
yeah, I mean, listen, what they have Jacksonville as 13th in the league overall DVA, which is a team total.
with the
And
whole season,
yeah,
yeah,
and they have the Giants at 20th, which is surprising because the defense has moved up substantially to about 11th now.
yeah,
Which was a huge jump because I really think the Giants defense, when they're healthy, and obviously Dexter Lawrence, I think is the best guy on the field when they play. The guy's an absolute beast. They're really dangerous. But let's stick with this KC Jaguars game. So there's obviously the stats that everyone knows, right? That 25 and 28 and 5 off a bye, Andy Reid, right? I mean, that's an amazing statistic.
yeah.
Mahomes off a bye is 9 and 1. He averages 30 points a game in those games.
Mm-hmm.
So Mahomes is going to score. The other thing that I looked up from a fantasy standpoint is Jacksonville's the worst in the league versus the tight end. Guess what Kansas City has?
Jesus.
The best tight end in football. Kelsey's going to have a field day.
It's like, I don't know which podcast it was when you asked me, like, what's their strategy for Kelsey? And I started like looking up names of people, but there is
no strategy for Kelsey. He's very hard to guard. I thought back in the day, a few years ago, before Shazier got hurt tragically, he was the typical perfect guy that you would want to cover a Kelsey. He's a linebacker with size who could run and just as fast as him.
Yeah.
And of course, we tried to replace him with Devin Bush, and you saw where that got us, nowhere. But I digress. So home teams are 29 and 11 in the last 10 years in the divisional round. So it averages about one upset per year if you look at the numbers. But last year, the underdogs, the favorites were 1 and 3. So I'm not sure if the worm is turning here or it's sort of a reversion back to the mean. But the other thing that I thought was interesting that I heard this week is somehow Trevor Lawrence has never lost a game on Saturday.
I heard that. I also love Peterson's reaction to that. He's like, you got to be fucking.
I mean, that's just unbelievable. But Doug Peterson, I like his attitude. He's 6-1 in the playoffs against the spread. I think 9 is a big number, 9.5. I just think it's a big number. I think it's a lot of points. And I anticipate this game will be played in the 30s. And I think Kansas City will score over 30 points. Mahomes does that. I don't know how they're going to stop Kelsey, but I think that Jacksonville can score 28 points in this game. I'm not impressed with Kansas City's defense. I know Chris Jones is a beast. He's a monster, probably plays his best football in the playoffs. And I know you said something about him last week where he kind of just lollygags his way through the game. And then in the fourth quarter, he makes the biggest play of the game. And that's what he does.
And I was wrong about that, by the way. I fact checked myself on that. And he's like 4th or 5th in the league in sacks. He has like 15. And I was like, what the fuck? How does he have that many?
Yeah, he's an all-pro.
He's
an all-pro. He's an all-pro. But I think behind him isn't that great. I know they have the one linebacker that they drafted that the Steelers were looking at that's real good, Bolton. But I think Jacksonville's going to score. I think they're playing with a lot of confidence. And I'm gonna take the underdog here. I'm not saying it's an upset because it would really surprise me if Kansas City lost this game.
Yeah.
Normally when
the handicap, listen,
yeah,
I'm with you. I'm on the Jags in this game. I think that the way that I see this playing out is that the Chiefs are going to get off to a slow start. They could even go down by 14 or 17 in this game.
It would be amazing.
Surprise me
if Jacksonville
one bit.
Took the lead. It would be incredible to play from the lead against them. And then plus when you're getting those points.
So I think like there's a good chance that could happen. I also think that, again, because they had the bye and they get slow starts and they historically haven't played that well at home. I know recent history they have, but I love what the Jags are doing. I have them, in my recency bias cut on DVOA. I have the Jags. And this is basically going back to week 14.
Okay.
I have the Jags ranked 3rd in the league, and I have the Chiefs ranked 5th. I think it's a great matchup for them. I think that Peterson showed me last week that he is a top tier coach in this
He
league. He
is.
did everything right in that game.
Yeah.
Every decision he made was just spot on. Like we talked about, like some of these coaches are dumb. It's
Yeah.
not him. Like he
No.
is the exception to a lot of the bad coaching that we see in this league. He's
I
excellent.
agree.
And
I agree
Trevor
with it.
Lawrence is playing a charmed season. And again, like, yeah, he can't turn the ball over 4 times in this game and expect to win. But
Let me ask you this.
I'm hoping that those are out of his system and they have nothing to lose in this game.
Well, that's true, but let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Will you have any money line action on Jacksonville?
I think it's worth it. And the answer to that is yes, because you're getting 380 or whatever the number is.
It's a huge number, Jack.
I think it's 380. And my favorite thing about this matchup is that, I have the Chiefs. It's their defense. It just comes down to their
DVOA
defense.
on defense is bad. I have
flashbacks right now of when the Denver Broncos were running up and down the field on the Chiefs.
It was unreal.
Like, the Raiders, you name it. Like even mediocre offenses this year.
How about the Texans?
Yeah, Texans. Like, I mean, teams that were bottom half of the league at best, bottom quartile, were running up and down and throwing the ball on them. And the Chiefs were just giving up 21, 28 points. And so what? They're going to suddenly shut down the Jags, who have the fifth-ranked offense?
Obviously, some of those games some of the games you mentioned there were on the road. And obviously Arrowhead is a different place altogether in the playoffs. And it could be intimidating for some teams. I don't think Peterson or his team will be intimidated. I know they're a very young team. So that's the one thing, like, sometimes you get this team that comes in with a little too much overconfidence or cockiness about them, but Trevor Lawrence strikes me as a guy who's just a quiet confidence. Like he doesn't ruffle feathers. Like he went to the Waffle House after they won.
I know.
You know what I'm saying?
Classic redneck move. But yeah. I also think that it's just, if this is a typical Chiefs game, they win the game by 3 or 4. They come back. They get into a situation where they make a big play in the second half, and suddenly the comeback is on, and here they come. And like last 2 minutes of the game, if Mahomes has a ball in his hand, they're going to win it either with a field goal or he'll score a touchdown. But this is too many points to lay. It's just too many again. It reminds me of when they played the Browns 2 years ago.
I agree. They
were laying handicap. 8 then also. They were laying 5 and they couldn't cover 5.
I agree with your handicap. Totally. We're both on the Jags.
All right. So let's move on. Next game is Eagles-Giants.
Wow. Reed and Cappy versus Brad in our circle. Wow.
Now this one, let me start this off, because what I did for this one was I did my recency bias, and what I did was I removed weeks 16, 17, and 18 because I don't want to judge the Eagles based on what they did in those weeks, because Jalen was hurt. Because Jalen was hurt. He wasn't playing.
He's still hurt.
I'm not grading.
By the way, he played week 18.
No.
Started and played the whole game against the Giants.
Hurts?
Yep. And it was 22-16. So your data is flawed.
But the Giants didn't play anyone.
They did not.
So I'm taking that. I'm taking that out.
And Philly only beat them by 6.
Okay. My point is,
with Jalen Hurts,
whether you agree with it or not, I'm removing 16, 17, and 18. And I have Philly where I think they should be, which is ranked.
You remove that from the Giants too? You're not taking obviously only the week you should take away from the Giants, the week that they didn't play their starters, which is week 18 against Philly.
Fine. So I'll
have the other ones in there.
Right. So I have Philly ranked 5th, removing those weeks, and they have the number 1 rush offense, not surprisingly.
Of course.
And so that's that. So yes. So then putting the filters back on for the Giants, they're not as bad as I thought they were going to be if I just do the last look back. But either way,
it's a big discrepancy on paper, but that's paper.
Yeah.
Games aren't played on paper.
The big mismatch for me in this game is the Giants' rush defense versus Philadelphia's rush offense. And it's the reason why I'm picking Philly in this game. Like, it's not only the week off, but it's the fact that there's a huge mismatch right there between Philly, who's going to run the ball, and the Giants who can't stop the run.
I think you have it reversed.
No.
I think the weakness on Philly is their rush defense, and Saquon's going to eat. He's going to eat their lunch.
No.
Philly can't stop the run.
No, wrong.
I'm not wrong.
Philly's rush.
Philly gives up over 100 yards a game every game on the ground.
Philly's rush defense is 16th. It's not like the bottom of the league, like the Giants is. Like the Giants is
middle of the road.
Giants, right? But the Giants is among the worst, and they're playing Jalen Hurts, who that's my edge. Like that's my big mismatch in this game, along with the fact that they own this team, kind of like a typical division ownership, the way like the Steelers own the Browns, where in a I don't care that it's the third time and it's hard to beat somebody 3 times in a year. I think Philly is coming out off a bye at home with a huge advantage on both defense and offense. And I'm on the Eagles -7.5. And by the way,
it's not 7.5. You got to make it 8.5 for this, because the line's at 8 now, and they're the number 1 seed at home, and it has to be 8.5.
That's fine. But I also think, the Wong teaser, or whether you call it the Wong or whether it qualifies or not, on Saturday has got to be a huge bet that people are going to be making between the Chiefs and the Eagles.
Oh, the Chiefs went to 9, so it can't really be a Wong.
Well, people have it in already.
And it's also the total's over 49 there, so it throws off the variance. So that you can't really, you can't
Let's
call
say
it
it's
a
not a
Wong.
Wong.
You
Let's
can
just
call
say
it
it's
whatever
not a
you
Wong.
want, but it's not a Wong teaser.
It's not a Wong, but it's going to be a very popular teaser.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure there's a lot of people that jumped on that. I looked at it when it was 8.5. I look at the lines, right when they come out, because I take advantage of that sometimes.
The amount of people that are going to have the 4 favorites in a 4-team teaser, I'm going to won't be able to track it. That's how many people are going to have it.
Right. That's why I got to root for Jacksonville to win by 7. Would be great.
So I'm taking it you like the Giants by the way you reacted to my Philly selection.
Listen, I think the time is now for the Giants. I think Jalen Hurts is nursing a bad shoulder. I know he's not on the injury report, but that doesn't mean anything to me. He's not healthy. He did not look good in that. You didn't even know he played. I watched that game. He did not look good in that last game. And I don't know about their willingness to run Jalen Hurts on RPOs. I don't think Jalen Hurts wants to get hit in that shoulder. Mm-hmm. And I think every guy on the Giant defense knows. And by the way, the Giant defense is healthy, right? We already talked about this last week. They have no injuries.
Yeah.
So they are really good up front. That your bias there against the run, they were missing a corner. They were missing a safety. They were missing an interior lineman all season. Those guys are all playing now. So I think you have to take a little bit with a grain of salt that reading. The other thing is, I think the Giants can exploit Philadelphia on the ground between the way Daniel Jones runs and the way Kafka plans this offense and Saquon getting him involved on slip screens and handing him the ball. Philly's going to have a hard time stopping the Giants run the ball. So this, to me, I just like the points. And listen, the Giants never win in Philly. I get it. Every Giant fan knows, hey, it's a house of horrors for them. But Dable is a different coach, man. He's a different animal. This team is healthy. They're feeling good. And Philly, I feel like, is coming in injured, man. They got that lineman he's not good right now.
Who?
Johnson, their number 1 lineman, who missed the last few weeks. He's the best lineman other than their center. And I don't even know if he's playing. And if he is playing, he's not 100%.
Lane Johnson?
Lane Johnson. Yep.
Totally healthy.
We'll see how healthy he is.
He had a groin, but he doesn't carry a designation for Saturday's game.
Okay, listen. I think other than the Giant fans, I think everyone else who's betting will have Philadelphia in a teaser, a 2-teamer, a 3-teamer, and a 4-teamer. There's no one out there that thinks the Giants can do this, but I will say
that's not true. There's plenty of believers.
Well, we're in New York, so I mean, you got to realize I'm talking about in the country. In the country, you go to anyone in Vegas, everyone's pounding Philadelphia in this game.
You think?
Yes.
I don't know. I think there's enough New Yorkers everywhere that'll be backing them this week.
They're a number 1 seed off a bye but
the line says otherwise. I agree. There is some level there.
With an MVP quarterback who I said was the MVP all year until he got hurt.
Yep.
So this is the thing. This is a hard game to handicap, because if Jalen is 100% healthy and his shoulder is fine and he's going to run those RPOs, and he's not afraid to stick his nose in it and run right up the seam, then the Giants are in trouble.
That's going to happen, by the way.
I just don't know that he's going to, number one, have the willingness to do it, to take a hit on that shoulder, because you get a solid hit on that shoulder, he's coming out.
I know.
I'm going to tell you right now.
He's going to play as if that never happened, and he's going to be willing to leave it all out there.
That's the way these guys do it. And I'm telling you, if he gets hit on that shoulder, he's fucking coming out. You got Gardner Minshew in there. And I'm telling you, the Giants, that would be unbelievable for them. The Eagles pretty much have, I think, an advantage in this game at every position except running back. Saquon is better than Miles Sanders. And the way Daniel Jones is, and the way Daniel Jones is playing, he's a two-headed monster running too. Now, I know Minnesota's defense isn't as good as Philly's. I mean, I'm not an idiot. Philly has a good defense, but they'll do enough to keep it close. And I just think it's a one-score game. So if I'm going to get 8.5, I'm going to take it. And I'm going to have some money on the money line, because God forbid the Giants win this game for Cappy and Reed, and I don't have them to win the game. I'll fucking kill myself. So
you gotta have it. You gotta have it. I think the same about the Jags. Like, if you're gonna be betting on them and you're getting 380, which is probably the same kind of number you're getting in this game.
Yeah, you touch it for less money. You just touch it for less units, but you still have to have something on it to say I had it if it comes in.
Yeah.
So that's my feeling on it. I hope it's a close game. I know Brad's going to the game with Fran sitting in the box. He's going to wear his Eagle jersey that we bought him for his birthday, Mush 00.
Oh my God.
Have you ever seen the jersey?
Yeah, I have.
The best.
God, if the Eagle fans only knew how he could be the kiss of death in that game.
And you know what's interesting is he likes the Giants, which I don't. I think he's just reverse psychology. The way you do it to us with Ohio State, very similarly.
Yeah.
There's no way. There's no way.
All right, so we're on the opposite sides of this one.
Okay.
Let's move on to Sunday, the early game. Buffalo, Cincy.
Yeah.
I've seen enough of Cincinnati. And in my rankings, they're not even better than the Steelers. They have not been playing well. They're not like the smoke and mirror show that the Vikings were, but they
haven't lost a game. And
I know, but I'm just saying.
How many in a row have they won? 10?
8 out of 9. Yeah.
They haven't lost a game in forever.
Yeah. But I'm saying, according to my rankings, my power rankings, I have them ranked 10th. I mean, like,
Detroit, they're ranked 10th.
Pittsburgh,
that's what I have.
The Saints, the Chargers, like even Green Bay is better than Cincinnati. And they're just not. I think Buffalo, it's a perfect time to get on them after that kind of letdown with Miami. And most of the country believes that Cincinnati is the right side of this game, even though the line is going the other direction. So when that happens, that split, right, when all the tickets are coming in on one side and yet the line's moving the other direction, like smart money is going on Buffalo and public money is going on Cincinnati. Like, I think that's a wonderful sign for the Bills. And I think another big sort of gap that I saw between these two. So Buffalo is my second best team on here. And Cincinnati's like weak spot.
They're actually my first best team.
Is really
I have Buffalo at number one.
Cincinnati's pass defense is kind of like their weakest like data point. And geez, what the Bills could do to exploit that is what I think is going to happen. And there's no stopping Buffalo from going to the AFC Championship game. This is the end of the road for Cincinnati.
So you're laying 5.5. It's 5.5.
Buffalo. Yeah.
All right, so let me just throw a couple things at you. I kind of like what you said, and I there's a lot that I like about Buffalo. There's a couple things that scare me about this game. Number one, Joe Burrow's never lost a game in January. He's an assassin. He has a quiet confidence about him. He gets rid of the ball quick. Cincinnati has
in his 3-year career, he's never
lost. Cincinnati.
Okay.
I understand you gave your perspective, and I heard you and I listened to you. Now I just want to throw some facts at you.
And I have the floor.
Cincinnati has better skill position players than Buffalo. Jamar Chase is equally as good, if not better, than Stephon Diggs.
Wow.
the other receivers that they have, Boyd, Hayden Hurst, and Higgins, are better than Buffalo's second and third receivers. Some guy that you've never heard of, Ishtar, Hakeem, and John Brown, who doesn't know how to run a route. So I know they have Don Beebe and not Don Beebe. Did I say Don Beebe? I meant Cole Beasley.
Don Beebe from the 80s.
He is their new Cole Beasley is their new Don Beebe.
That's fine.
And Mixon, I think, is better than Singletary. So what I'm saying is, if Cincinnati's offensive line was intact, which it is not, okay, I would like Cincinnati here a lot with the points because I think it's way too many. The problem I'm having is, despite the fact that Burrow is 9-1 in games against teams in the playoffs that are not in the AFC North, which I think is a remarkable stat. He's only in the league for 3 years. And despite the fact that he's 6-0 in January in the playoffs, which is amazing too, they just don't have the guys up front. They're missing at least 2 starters, maybe 3 from their offensive line. And the problem is this: in games where Burrow gets sacked 5 times or more, he's never won.
Yeah.
And in games when he gets sacked 4 times or less, he's 13-1. I think Buffalo is going to sack him 7 or 8 times.
I totally agree.
And therefore,
they know that's the recipe. If they let him sit back there, they're toast.
Now, listen, the only thing I'll say is, if Von Miller was playing, this would be a no-brainer for me. Now, the thing is, Von Miller's been in the room, obviously, with these young kids, Rousseau, and a couple of the other names, obviously Ed Oliver. Some of the other names escape me, but they've been playing very well and listening to him all year long. He's in the room talking to them, teaching them what to look for, tendencies, and that matters because the guy is one of the all-time greats. I don't think that Cincinnati is going to be able to protect Burrow, and that's why I like Buffalo.
You're with me on this.
Yep.
All right. Wow, that's 3. No, that's 2 now. We 2. Both agree on Jags and Buffalo.
Yep.
And finally, boy, were you wrong about Dak Prescott last week.
I was, man. Wow. Actually, I was really more wrong.
My favorite moment was, he's going to throw interceptions. You need to say that, and you need to say it out loud.
And you need to say it out loud.
And all I thought about while he was just slicing and dicing Tampa was you saying that. But he played the best game of his career last week against a very good defense. Now, my question is,
not very good, very old.
They came into that game healthy. And that, look, they
had no pass rush.
He played great.
He wasn't sacked once. They have no pass rush, Tampa Bay. Okay. San Francisco has a pass rush.
I know.
A real one.
Can you admit that he played a great game?
He had the game of his life.
That's right. Okay.
The reason Tampa lost was not so much because the defense couldn't stop Dak. Dak left them in the game a bunch of times in the second half. Tom Brady was insufferably bad.
I know.
He threw an interception in the red zone where it was for no reason. He just threw it up for grabs.
Oh, I know. And this was all part of my handicap, but that was awful. I saw it. That was, he threw it to the other team, and it went almost like in a non-pressure situation. It was just like a lob.
You got to give credit to Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn, that defense is fast. Obviously Micah Parsons is the best player on the field, and Tampa Bay, even with Jensen coming back, they just couldn't do enough to protect Tom. He was rushing the ball. He was definitely out of sync. The receivers, Godwin, when he was catching the ball, and he caught a lot of catches, he was getting killed. They had to stretcher a guy off, one guy, and Evans wasn't himself. He dropped that last one that would have been so big for me, plus 12.5. Do you understand that bomb off
in a 4-teamer or a regular teaser?
I had him in a 3-team teaser plus 12.5, and they did something no one does. They recovered an onside kick.
I know. I saw it.
And the first play, Brady, as usual, goes for the throat, fly pattern down the right side. Evans beat his man like a rented mule, and the ball went off his fingertips on the 5-yard line. He should have fucking laid out. I would have laid out in the JFL.
Yeah.
So anyway, that cost me. That was a 50,000 unit swing in Megabucks. Wow. 50,000. Instead of being a 200, I'd be a 250 in second place. That's a big big drop by Mike Evans. Big.
One of so many this year, right?
Yeah, he had a down year. He was bad
What a
in
horrible
fantasy.
year.
People drafted him high and dropped him in fantasy. That's how bad he was.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting to think what goes on with Tom. But listen, you were right. You did better than me last week. I will say this. I had Jacksonville. I had the Giants. I had them both money line plays. So I made some money there. And
Nice.
and I didn't get hurt. I basically finished the week at 200, which is where I started. So after all that nonsense, I didn't lose any units. And there were some people that did. So I'm in fourth place. It's not great, but it's not the worst I've ever been going into this round in the history of this league.
So did you see enough from Dallas last week to convince you that they're the right side to back this week? Or you think San Francisco and a rookie quarterback is going to,
I know that Scott
Dak is going to be who you thought he was going to be last week. You think he's going to do it this week?
I think this is the hardest game to handicap. I think on paper, San Francisco has a huge advantage. I have them ranked as number 2 in the whole league.
Mm-hmm. I have them number 1.
Yeah. I mean, I have the Bills 1, them 2, and I have Dallas 5. But I will say, this is a big step up in class for Dallas. San Francisco is a much faster team. They're a much more well-coached team. They have obviously McCaffrey and Debo and Ayuk and Kittle. So they match or exceed Dallas at every position.
Mm-hmm.
And they're at home. And I understand Purdy, and I understand everyone's waiting for this kid to lay an egg. I kind of was against Seattle, and that's why I thought Seattle was getting too many points. But we got Geno Smith. You know what I'm saying?
The guy dropped the thing. Like, don't you think, like, if Seattle was able to hang around and even make you think they're going to win that game throughout, up until that point, don't you think Dallas can do the same thing, if not better?
This is the thing. First of all, I don't think Dak is capable of that type of performance that he had last week ever again in his life.
Really?
Especially this week. That is not happening this week. If you think you're going to see Dak Prescott with that performance against this defense, whatever you're smoking, I got to get some of it because that ain't happening.
It's legal in Jersey.
But that ain't happening, brother. I'm sorry. I mean, this is a step up in class. This is an entirely different level of defense. He is going to be under pressure. He is. I don't know if Dallas's offensive line is. I think Dallas's offensive line in a lot of ways is the key to this game, because if they could keep Bosa and those guys off him, he has a chance.
No, I know, and I think for me, this handicap comes down to just one thing. It's like 2 great defenses.
Yeah.
2 very good offenses. I wouldn't say great about either one. And all things being equal, which quarterback do you want? Brock Purdy, a charmed rookie who looks younger than my 14-year-old, or Dak Prescott, who's been in the league for 8 years and gotten to this point before and had experience in the playoffs. And he's like, I'll take Dak every time. And I think, will he play as well as he did last week? I agree with you. That's going to be a very tough performance to beat, but I'd rather try to build on that than say, oh, he had a terrible game last week and he's going to play great this week. That is the ultimate confidence builder, to come off a great game and not to think, oh, now he's going to play terrible. But like, he played that well. That is a reminder to himself, the organization, and all of his fans that he's a great quarterback and he can do it again.
I agree. Listen, there's a lot of fans of Dallas in this country. I mean, they're America's team. There's a lot of people that think Dallas is going to win the Super Bowl this year. A lot.
Yeah.
And
I'm one of them.
I disagree with that wholeheartedly. I don't think they have enough. I think their secondary and third receiver is dog shit. I think they have a nice tight end in Schultz. He's a top 10 tight end. He's not a top 3. Kittle's way better than him. I don't think McCarthy's a better coach than Shanahan.
I totally agree. And that's my one, just like it was last week.
Yeah.
It's my one reservation.
Well, let me just go through it. I think San Francisco has an advantage at just about every position. I'll give you Dak over Brock because he's young, but I'll take C-Mac over Pollard and Ezekiel. I'll take Debo, even probably with CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb's maybe a little bit better.
Debo over CeeDee Lamb?
I think they're equal because Debo gives you a lot more in versatility than
it's
CeeDee
hard.
Lamb
That's
does.
like that's a bit of apples and oranges. You have
Okay,
like lightning speed
I get it,
versus
but I'll take Kittle over Schultz. I'll take Ayuk over Gallup. Right? Definitely take Ayuk
over Gallup for sure.
100%.
Schultz, Kittle.
I'll take Robbie Gould over the Dallas kicker.
Oh my God!
Mahar.
Did they get a new kicker this week?
Nope, they're sticking with him. They believe in him.
My God.
Yep. Robbie Gould hasn't missed a fucking field goal in the playoffs from inside 35 yards. I don't think since you had fucking didn't have hair on your balls.
1977. Oh God.
My point is he's very good. I just think, and obviously I think the defense is better. I know Micah Parsons is great, and I'm not saying he's not, but there's ways to beat Micah Parsons. I like to run right at him. You don't run away from him. You run at him, and you make him tackle. Right? So they know that, and I think there's a coaching advantage. I would be surprised if San Fran lost this game. I'm gonna be honest with you. I like San Francisco. I know the line is 3.5, and that seems like a lot. This could easily be a 3-point game, Jack, and you could be dead right that this comes down to the end.
I love the points, by the way.
Yeah,
I love
I know.
When that came out, and I was like, oh my God, they're giving more than a field goal.
Yeah. Oh, I get it, but I'm going to take
it. And then it went the other way.
I'm going to take San Francisco. So we're opposite this. I just think there's too much going their way. And I think Dallas is not going to have it as easy as they had it in Tampa. And Dak is not going to be as good. I'm sorry. I know what Dak is. He's not the guy that played last week. He's a reversion to the mean. He's absolutely turning it over at least once, maybe twice against this defense. And I think San Francisco has too much, man.
And I don't know if this could be something to look at in the prop market, but like, how many turnovers do you think Brock will have?
It wouldn't surprise me if he had 0.
Really?
Yeah. Would not surprise me.
You're expecting him to have a better game than Dak. There you go. You said it.
I think he's going to, I don't know statistically if that's true. I'm not saying he's going to throw for more yards. I don't know if he's going to have more attempts. I think he's going to manage the offense the way his coach wants him to manage the offense. And I think San Francisco has too many weapons in a 4-quarter game in their own building for Dallas to stay within 3.5 points at the end. That's just the way I feel about it. I think McCarthy's going to do something dumb like he did at the end of the game last year that they lost at home when he ran a quarterback draw with no timeouts left and they didn't have time to line up and snap the ball. And the game ended. Yeah. That's McCarthy, right? I mean, he does these things. By the way, do you know Brad's favorite coach is McCarthy?
No, that's not true, is it?
No, it's an absolute. That was being facetious.
He must love Sirianni. I mean, he's got to be coach of the year.
Oh, Sirianni's been amazing.
Philly's not going to, I don't see them winning too many other awards.
You think it's overstated the anger in Philly? Like if Giant fans go down there, like let's say you get a bunch of guys from Roslyn that go down to Philly for the game and they're wearing their Giant jerseys. If the Giants win, are they going to get beat up?
No doubt.
You do think so?
Oh yeah.
Even with the social media and the law and the lawyers and the physical assault, there's got to be somebody dumb enough in Philly that has no assets that'll just fucking won't even care, right? Like,
well, actually, I think it was one of your buddies, Ed Dykey, said to me years ago, and this was a very astute observation, which is Giant and Eagle fans hate each other during the game, but afterwards they'll go grab a beer. But when it comes to Dallas, they absolute hate.
Dallas is
the
different.
Hatred between both Philly and Dallas and New York and Dallas. Those fights are real.
You're right. That's why they had a jail under Veterans Stadium for years.
So I don't think there's violence after those games.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
We're too close, especially with like South Jersey, North Jersey. We're so close to each other,
Yeah, and I also think it's interesting about it is that there's a lot of family dynamic splits between
of course,
there's a lot of marriages where you have
that's what I mean.
Giant fans and Eagle fans and the husband and the wife and the kids and the
totally.
It's just interesting. You don't get that with the Cowboys.
No, and you get that starts about like 15 or maybe 30 miles south of me, where all of northern New Jersey are Giant fans. Yes. And suddenly, like right around Princeton, a little bit south of that, it turns into Philadelphia.
Yeah,
and it happens at the Shore. It happens with Giants Eagles. It's crazy.
it
That's
is
split.
amazing. Yeah.
But yeah, then there's like you said, there's so many families that have fans of both
Do
teams.
you have that with the Bengals, Cincinnati, in Columbus?
No, it's like, well, you have a little bit of that in Columbus, but because we don't have a pro team, it's sort of like you choose.
Oh,
And
right.
historically, north side of Columbus, and north and up is Cleveland, and
It's
south
Cleveland
is
and south
Cincinnati.
is Cincinnati.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah, but there's not again, because there's no professional team in Columbus. Usually you pick sides, and Browns tend to be a little bit more working class, and Cincinnati tends to be a little bit more white collar.
Yeah,
There,
yeah, a little
there's
more.
some of those dynamics also.
Yeah, yeah, sure, sure, sure. Well, listen, I think the games that we agree on, I mean, I'm certainly going to fire in something on that because there's two games that we like. We like Buffalo and we like Jacksonville.
Yeah, so we were
So
two exactly. We got the Jags and we got the Bills.
I actually like that. I like that teaser too. Bills pick 'em, Jags plus 15.
Yeah,
That's
It's funny.
tasty.
I'm not as scared uh of a Jags blowout. Like, if you had to pick one blowout from these four games, what do you think it would be? Or if there's more than one, tell me.
It's an interesting question. I think most people would say Philly could blow out the Giants because they always do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but realistically, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of people. Listen, if Jacksonville's offense doesn't show up, I mean, the Chiefs are going to score over 30 points. I mean, that is a guarantee.
Yeah.
They
But
do
I
it.
don't. Yeah, but we both agree that their defense isn't good enough to like pitch a shutout or
I
like hold
agree.
somebody to 3 or 6.
I
Like,
could
they've never
see
done that.
what's interesting and sort of the way most people wouldn't think of this, but believe it or not, it could be the Bills.
Yeah, exactly.
It could be like 37-17 or thirty-seven
Yeah,
twenty
I had the
Buffalo
same thought.
because the whole country's on Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm telling you, when you lose that offensive line and you're not protecting in the trenches, it throws everything off.
Yeah,
You can't run it the way you want to run it. You can't protect. You
you don't
can't
have the
over. You don't
time.
have. You don't have time to get the ball downfield to Jamar Chase the way you want to.
Yeah,
And I know Burrow is incredibly smart and really adept at getting rid of the ball quick, and he knows what he has. Like, he's been practicing all week. He knows the guys he has on the line. He knows who Buffalo has. He's not a dummy. So
mm-hmm.
he knows he's got to get rid of it quick. That doesn't mean you always can.
That's right. Yeah.
And so that would be the one game that I think, ironically, because most people would never say of all the games, how could that be the game where there would be a blowout? But that's the one where, like, man, I mean, there's been a few games where I think Cincinnati, I recall them losing to Tennessee, where he got sacked like 8 or 9 times, and it was not pretty.
Yeah.
So I am hoping that Buffalo has that type of performance on defense where those sacks are over 5.
Mm-hmm.
And when Burrow gets sacked over 5 times, he's 0 for 3. He's never won.
Wins. Yeah. I'm with you, buddy. Well, good luck this weekend. Cheers.
You too, man.
I'm sure we'll chat tomorrow, but I wish you luck with all your bets. I don't know. Are you getting aggressive at wantomakeabet.com?
I'm really concerned about what I'm going to do. I'm struggling over the amount I should be betting. I don't want to walk out of this weekend with less than 150,000 no matter what. So I'm at 200. Doesn't give me a lot of upside, but I'm going to play it. I think I'm going to play it 25% of my units at most if I lose everything on the board, which I've done. I mean, it's gambling, right? No matter how you handicap.
And my advice,
you could lose every bet.
Yeah, my advice to you and anyone else is, especially if you're in a position like up near the lead, is not to try to like hit a home run parlay.
Play hero ball. Stop. Like, don't be a hero.
Now, if you're chasing, if you're like 100,000 points behind,
Cappy's got 2 teams at 50.
Right now, you got to launch some sort of grenades, like 20, maybe a $10,000 or $20,000 parlay, 3 or 4 teamer that can get you right back into the picture. But when you're in a position like you, I would be betting straight bets. Don't connect the games together as much as you can help it, and let your winning percentage over the 4 games like dictate how well you do, and not like all of a sudden like have everything tied to San Francisco game and where you have to complete a 3 out of 4 parlay.
Part of me likes that. because I can hedge. Like there are things that I'm going to have where I'm going to be hopefully alive going into San Fran,
Okay, that's
where I
true.
could like
You have
where
enough
I
time. Yeah.
yes, where I have enough time and I have plenty of units.
Yeah.
Kind of like what I did last week with Dallas, thank God, where I hedged,
Yeah.
because if Tampa, the reality was if Tampa would have, forget about win the game, if they would have covered the 8.5, I'm at 335.
Mm-hmm.
But because they didn't, and I hedged with Dallas, I'm only at 200.
Yeah.
That's a big swing.
Huge.
Huge. So I understand what you're saying, but a lot of times the gimmicks can really help you stay alive and get to that last game. And then from there, you can make a decision. Oh, I'll take the Dallas money line plus 180 to
Yeah.
hedge here, or
Right,
plus
right.
the 4 or whatever,
Right.
So
Well,
yeah,
good
it's
luck,
interesting.
whatever you decide. I'm heading out to a party, play some music with some local
Yeah,
musicians here.
that's so great. I've been sending you some music stuff. Did you like some of the stuff I sent you? It's pretty
No,
cool,
what?
right?
From what? From when?
I sent it on through my Instagram.
Oh, yeah, yeah. The stuff you shared.
Just some guitar stuff that I think
Good.
is cool.
Very good.
All right, man. Listen, have a great night
You
and
too, man.
a better weekend. And let's touch base. Obviously, we'll talk offline. But and good luck to the bettors out there. Listen, be smart with your units. Remember, this you can't win the league this week.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah, I
only
agree.
lose it.
Good luck to everyone. Enjoy the action. It's going to be great action this weekend. And we'll talk to everybody next week.
God, let's go blue. Come on, blue.
Go Philly.
See you later, brother.
Later.
Be good.